and Siuslaw Indians, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the Coquel Indian Tribe, the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, and the Klamath Tribes. We express our respect to the many more tribes who have ancestral connections to this territory, including the Chinook Indian Nation and the Fort McDermott Paiute and Shoshone tribes, as well as to all other displaced indigenous people who call Oregon home.
Motion made by Dillon, seconded Fisher. All in favor? Opposed? Other? Great. Thank you, Senator Ludeman. Do we have anyone today for announcements? Do we have anybody today for public forum? Okay, great. We'll get on to financial business. As of yesterday, the surplus is standing at $774,817, unallocated reserve at $34,494. At this time, I'll invite the chair of the department's finance committee, Mr. Kyle Richardson, to present on what the committee's been up to.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair.
And before you guys go, once we send DFC back to committee, y'all can head over to breakfast and start eating, and that'll be shortly hereafter.
Yeah, so our first request is actually to be sent back to committee. I would like you all to deny our initial recommendation. We have some last minute adjustments that are quite necessary for the departments. I'm going to go ahead and present on our real request, and not the one reflected in the IP tracker, but the one we are going to be sent back to committee to finalize. So yeah, this is our 2026 fiscal year recommendation. It has been a long 5 months preparing this. We've met with dozens of people, we've sunk hundreds of hours into meetings and investigations and ensuring all this money is going to a good place. Quick summary here. Last year, well, the current year, I suppose, is the Department's Finance Committee budget sits at $4,355,524. Their requests this year reflect a number of $4,799,972. It's about $4.8 million. That is a 10.2% increase that was requested from our departments. These requests are very generally made with the best intentions and the best needs of the department in mind. We have looked into all these numbers, and we have decided to recommend a budget of $4,705,000, $705,370 for an increase of $349,856, which is 8.03%. Admittedly, this is a high number, but given the student labor, the kind of looming bargaining agreement here, along with other cost of living increases, inflation, some reshuffling of institutional staff members, and kind of the situation with the departments, we feel this is absolutely necessary to continue the services provided by these departments to the students. Good. Yeah, if you're more of a visual thinker, this is kind of what we were looking at here. The current numbers on the left, requests in the middle, and then our recommendation on the right there. I also wanted to give you all kind of a 10-year view of DFC. You can see back to 2016, our budget was $2.499 million, 89. And it has been increasing steadily over the years. Pretty big jump in between fiscal year 21 and 22. And I think we're kind of on par with increasing the services and taking care of these departments and ensuring that they can do all the great work they do. That is a summary of all of our numbers. I'm realizing now those numbers are really small. If anyone would like to look at that on their own computer, I think we can get that sent out into the chat so you guys can evaluate that. We also prepared a quick little one-pager of a summary of our departments. I say one-pager, it's not actually a one-page, but it is a short, brief summary of where these increases are going for each department. I think somebody can send that out right now. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the other factors that we're considering outside of just department fiscal responsibility and impact. We have the UO Student Workers Negotiation. Obviously, we want to support our student workers, ensure that they can be paid a fair and livable wage. And on the flip side of that, kind of that our departments are prepared to pay that fair and livable wage. The last thing we want to see is negative impacts of a bargaining agreement that it forces layoffs or a rollback of services, cut hours. Any of that would be really detrimental to to our departments and detrimental to students. High inflation. This a couple years ago would have been a hard thing to um, speak on quickly, but I think everyone has felt the impacts of this high inflation, and it's now a big enough conversation that I'm just going to leave it at that. Institutional changes reflect some reshuffling of departments and their umbrella bodies. It has been complicated, and it's shifting responsibilities and leadership there. So we have some leadership turnover, and that definitely plays a factor into what we're doing. Federal changes. I am sure you're all aware of the changes happening at the federal level. There's quite some concern about the impacts of these executive orders and new administration will have on higher ed. I know myself personally and the TFAB board have been concerned about the impact of enrollment. It's very easy to take a hit on enrollment. There's many factors that pool into it. I won't speak too much to it today, but in the case that we are below our enrollment projections, it will hurt. It will hurt us. It will hurt the greater university funding, and that is something we need to be prepared for. And then, of course, past responsibility and requests. We evaluate all these departments on fiscal responsibility and how they've used those funds in the past. Usually, high carry forward balances are looked upon disfavorably. However, in certain cases, we do allow them to keep that carry forward and use it for special projects. I know, just to name a couple, the Basic Needs has a good pool of money that they are saving to prepare for the student food pantry on campus. Basic Needs does that. Duck Rides also had a large carry forward. They've done a great job at spending that down to replace old vehicles. They have a new access shuttle coming and they're slowly making the shift to electric vehicles. So we're really happy to see that, and we see that as a great use of carry forward funds. Yeah, that is all for me for the moment. I would now ask that we be sent back to committee to finalize these changes procedurally.
Thank you, Kyle. Is there a motion to send DFC back to committee? Dylan,
I move to send the budget for the Department's Finance Committee back to the original committees.
Second Scro.
motion made by Dylan, seconded Scro. Is there discussion? Rosemary? Scro?
Could you just go back to that second slide? I just want to clarify something. I haven't looked at the thing sent out to the chat. Just like the 3 bars.
Yeah, no, I
With
can't
the
see
arrows.
any.
Oh, sorry.
This one?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wanted you to verify, or the one right above it, sorry. Yeah, I wanted you to verify that, I know you had said something in last Senate about looking at fully funding the forensics team and the whole situation with that. I'm confused on why, is this the second bar that you had initially done without funding the forensics and the second one is then funding it? I was just concerned if that's the case, then why is it less than the original thing that you projected?
So that kind of middle bar right there and the number of 4.8 million, that is the request that our departments have all asked us for. That's the total sum of what they came to us and said they needed. We then cut it down to 4.
Oh, and then that's
yes.
the 8% is
Yeah,
what you're,
The bottom bar is our actual recommendation.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and none of these numbers are reflected in the current IFE tracker, which is why we're asking to
Yeah.
be sent back to committee.
yeah, cool, just clarifying, thank you. I yield.
Any other discussion? Oh, Cole.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. So, is it your belief that the Board of Trustees would approve an 8% increase? And if so, why?
Well, hopefully after today, the entire IFE increase will not be 8%. I think we'll see some further discussion on this after the fact, but the individual committee budgets can be higher. That's not scrutinized and kept to that 5% cap.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll vote by roll. Peters,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Muhammad, Vo, Potter, Ackman, Pinheiro, Moreno, Fisher, Withers, Ramirez Pineda, Nagarajan. Is Wu online?
Aye.
Wu,
Aye.
Wu,
Aye.
Esbeck, Tagtalumen, Scro,
Aye.
Dillon,
Aye.
Ludeman, Bauman,
Aye.
Ducharme,
Aye.
Cole,
Aye.
Jenkins Hiscox, Garrity.
Aye.
And I say aye as well. The budget will be sent back to the committee and we will be in recess until I call us back.
Sounds like you're I'm mentally prepared for 9 to 5. I don't know how. 9 to 5. You're working 9 to 5. That's like when I'm mentally prepared.
Yeah.
That means like.
That's true. But
I mean, there
maybe
is
it's
a.
more like a weird event.
So they're gonna edit the. Yeah. And. I got it. I was like, oh, good. How are you?
It is, but now I'm like in the sun and it's kind of. Yeah. It what happens if it is not sends back anything? So the 5% is the way they take it to defer.
We also have in the Constitution, we have 7%. We vote 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's all the possibilities.
Dylan and I talked. Everything's good. We're seeing each other on Monday. I don't know. Maybe get dinner. You know, hang out at your house. I haven't been like 3. I like I've not been sitting around. Good morning, princess. Wait, where is he?
See your bacon on.
Yeah.
How are you guys on this fine morning?
I don't know. I made a whole ordeal with my friend. Knocked out and a lot. And I still went to bed at 2 in the morning. I watched like Ted Lasso. I did a face mask. I did my nails. I just like hung around.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going out tonight, and then I ended up going out. But I was home by like midnight.
And he went, hair is like,
oh my god, that's crazy.
that orange juice looks yeah.
I went to the fucking house.
Oh my god, you want the shots? Did you make your wait, you were there too?
I know, I saw you. Do you remember that? Guys, Gabs was there. I know.
Did you hear what happened with her?
What?
Like Gabs and Rachel matched on Hinge.
What did we do?
Yeah, they didn't say anything. Gabs thought it was
I
so
saw
funny.
at the party last night, I smiled and then she smiled back and then we just like looked like
That's so funny. You might say he's on it. Sorry, friend. Hey, come over here. And then Rachel picked me up from to my house.
Like
To
the
go to
morning
So Much
after.
Love. And Gabs walked out and she's like, oh.
That's good.
Yes, you know, it's like the way that we have a bit of like, oh, this is a Rachel Withers. Gabs has the same day.
Really?
Yeah.
Mortified.
No, it's like in a way of like, wait, is this the Rachel Withers?
No, I know, but like, in fact, that's what they think of me when I'm not with them. It's like on the freaks me out. I had another girl. She's like the last show that I watched her. It's like so.
Brutal.
Her district, again, just moved in sideways in Portland though. Her last name is like.
That's how I feel about
His brother's
my
like
last night. I went out with my girlfriends and like one of them brought their friends and I introduced myself here. Like, oh my god, I sent her this and I was trying to just like talk about like what's in your list. And like I really kind of know her, but like kind of don't. Like we're like friends with friends type of thing.
No, I would freak out if I heard that.
He was so sad about that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's just like he was like I was just saying some of them are just like my friends, like first names, you know, like Ella's dog Astro, like no one knows. I think so. Jamie says for a family emergency.
Yeah.
Something that happened very last minute, just kind of like this. So she's like, they're not. I don't know if it was like a sign. Jamie said it was kind of serious.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about these? I don't think it's that. Damn, that pineapple squirted all over me.
Wait, I want pineapple.
Oh wait, doesn't.
Second the line goes down, and then I go back and Just have a purple to nibble on.
Ooh, good idea. I love breakfast too.
These eggs are kind of unique. Can't tell if they're like good or bad.
Whenever I'm scared
So I
of
said
eggs,
unique.
I cover them in because I just can't eat them plain. Or else I'll, like,
That's how I feel about hot sauce.
not like
Who has a turtleneck and everything?
Where the white one was?
Yeah.
And then Babe tried to make fun of how she
Yeah.
That was actually so embarrassing. And she texted him and was like, oh, it was sad that we got 8 stars.
Was you guys party last night?
And he was like, no.
Yeah, there were a lot of people there
Not
for
again.
the weather. I mean, I guess it was a rainy time, but
Gab said that she was staff. Gab said it was like her, Chuck, and
Didn't we like hire like
had free lunch, and she was us. I'll put my in like that. She was like, I
like I feel like they have notes. Yeah.
Yeah, people. I was like completely sober, so sent me a selfie in her like makeup. She's like, she always like a her and I both. What happens no matter how drunk we are, we always like get ourselves ready for bed. At least do some level of it. Never just fall in bed. She was a total raccoon eyes. Her makeup's like everywhere, and her clothes were like just kind of half off. Oh, are you sweating? Sign of a good night. Yeah. You know what? Look at that. Or do you want me to? How much we need to tell your house party? When?
Yeah.
week 8. That's so. I was like, I should probably do the one. Like bopping around. Like I there.
It's the worst news I've ever heard. Move what? Use that on what your party?
Your parents
You second.
Yeah, I sent my siblings.
I'm not doing anything. Is that okay?
I heard
You did brown. Yeah, I'm so.
I think you're just like a dinner. Like I'm not doing the whole. And I'm
Yeah,
not.
I'm so. So I can't even remember. But yeah, I'm gonna have to hear. I should.
How many pair of hands in Morocco? No.
it was what you'd expect it to be, but not like terrible. It was like probably the happy event.
No.
It was chill. It was chill enough.
No.
I built my loot resources for the 21. That was a huge thing. I have to build my. I have to build my energy back up. No, Aaron. It was Aaron's house. But Dylan and I. The man. It surprised me.
You are.
Awesome.
You went up.
Well, I demanded it when I was sitting at the table.
Night.
But I was on the
I mean, for it.
Oh my god.
That's cute.
I found her for
Like, what was that sound, by the way? Like, oh, you didn't see all tall men like lugging out the table in wooden pieces.
That's
Like 2 days later. Oh yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
I don't think I'll get through.
Yeah.
That's why you're like I remember. was so hard. I couldn't have to. I didn't have to.
Yeah, I know.
Are any of them yours? Like, do they come with you?
But, you know, they're all used and everything, so. I didn't get it. When it's like every like take your hand. No, look. Like, it's like I miss my family. Oh, that's funny.
We're Wizards down.
That's funny. So they all like to have like those theme game things. Yeah, but they're. Yeah, Aaron, let's go. Sustainable queen. I need to announce it.
Yeah, they like sprayed it or something.
I ran into you as I was leaving the party, and then I went home, and then I went to bed. So I was asleep. Well, surprisingly, I didn't fall asleep right away because I'd been exhausted the whole day. But regardless, I was asleep before 1 a.m.
I know.
It was chill. My best friend and I hosted a Chinese New Year dinner thing, so we like cooked different food. We all wrapped dumplings. It was so fun. Yeah.
I know he was frowning at. He's like, I think I'm just trying to do my job. Okay, not like I don't want any. I got a daughter. Like, I know. Like, I just feel like I don't know. Yeah. Like no. Yeah. We have no. It's like a lot. This sucks. Yeah. I kind of want to.
Speaker, is there a time where we're reconvening? Now? Okay.
I need to contribute to like
How you guys doing?
Hello, testing. Does this work? Testing. Testing, testing.
Can I show you your laptop? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got paid.
but they just it's like
No, you're over. I'm not.
it's actually what now? High school or not actually. Well, the invite and I still don't have next year.
Joanne, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. Does my microphone work?
Go ahead and try to say something.
Testing. Testing.
So I have
Testing. Testing. Testing.
Not been my experience. Like how
Testing. Does this microphone work? Um. Um. Testing. Does this microphone finally work?
that's where everyone knows me. Everyone knows what I'm doing. They know where to find me on. That's why I got here early. They know when my office hours are. And on top of that,
Testing.
they will FaceTime us.
Testing. Microphone isn't working.
Yeah.
It's going off on my end.
No,
I figured it.
I don't know. So my second year class, yeah, it's like 160. Is it, I think the first year or is it year? Is very fluffy. Very fluffy.
Testing. Virtual is so difficult.
Third year, like that program, so we have students who are in Portland also. And then our last year was like,
Senators, could you please find your seats?
mainly like the English. Why does she make it? On a daily basis, but you know, I'm not complaining, like I'm glad. But then whenever there's you're so true. I like your trip, but I feel like you look so good today. You always look so good. Thank God, I need to take you everywhere I go to just hide me. Yeah. I woke up and I think I went to bed at like, to be honest, at like 8:35. I was like, it is what it is. It happened. It's gonna be like. I used to be on my Be Real friend. I'm no longer on my Be Real friend. I was drinking for a while and then it just like went off at school. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because she didn't need anything now. They don't even know. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in order. How this is going to work. So Kyle just presented. We'll have Jordan present and then Tira. And then we can vote after you hear sort of the ask from all the committees how it'll go. So now I'll invite Jordan up to present.
Yes. I'm good. I can do it.
I think that, wait.
Did I imagine that?
I was about to say, I think that you do need your computer. I'm so sorry.
No, I'll just send it. Morning, George. I'm on. This is so bright. Want sunglasses?
Shade.
Shade.
Press all of them. Then select exec.
That is cool.
I'll wait for that to go down. Hello, senators and other interested parties. CFC budget, FY 26. Let's go. I'm stoked. So here you all are. Here's the snapshot CFC increase summary. As you can see, it's 1.4%, $42,000 and $931. This is 1.2% less than what we originally thought, thanks to LTD. The estimate for them came in a lot lower. As you can see, there's actually a decrease with LTD this year. So we are asking for a total of 1.4% increase. So next slide. There we are. All right, as I said, LTD, I think $1,042,042 and a little change. This year they're asking for, that's green. Should I just stand by? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Technical difficulties, all good. Yeah, now they're going to be $1,037,000 and a little change. This is a minus of $4,000, 0.47 decrease. We approved them. They requested this, less enrollment than last year, and I will go over that in the next slide. Enrollment estimates. These were the estimates that we were given. That's how that number is calculated. And then the amount of riders. So for all of last year, all the fiscal year of last year, they had 6,028 riders. This year, just in fall term alone, they have had 5,093 riders. And this is 100% underreported because of the EMX and was not making people scan to get on. They are going to start that. They may have already started that. I would have to check, but they're starting that they're starting that really soon, and then we'll get more accurate numbers. As it stands, that is a quarter of the student population. So this is a far-reaching contract. I think it's very useful. That's how the cost breakdowns. And yeah, next slide. On Daily Emerald. So they asked for a 3% increase. Daily Emerald's very active. They've been at a bunch of our Senate hearings, and they've been involved on campus. You see them all around, and their increases. They've both directly and indirectly 23,000 students and 23,834 students, thank you, have been affected by them both directly and indirectly. Next slide. And we approve them because they were within this 3% increase, and they were doing they've been doing what their contract said. So ASUO legal service, same 3% increase, same as requested. This gives free legal advice and representation. 1,217 students were directly impacted, 240 students indirectly impacted, and they saved students about $403,000 over the fiscal year for students. So they represent students, both give legal advice and just general representation in court, get people out of any sort of issue they've had with their landlords or a speeding ticket, anything, any legal issue. Next slide. Osberg. There was a typo. If you want to go back real quick to the first slide. So that was rounded up and we thought it was 3%. There was a minor issue. I just checked with them. They're fine with it. They budgeted for the $156,560. So they're all good. But we thought we approved a 3% increase, and because of they thought they had less money than they originally thought, than they did. But I checked with Osberg today and they're all good with the amount they have. So we're giving them a 2.7% increase, and you can go back to the Osberg slide. And they've been super active. They are here today, literally, and they're on campus in the legislature. They're advocating for different issues, and the right to repair bill has affected all of Oregon, so entirely statewide, and they also advocate for the national stage. Next slide. Cascadia mobility. So Cascadia mobility. They asked for a 60% increase. That was a lot. That ridiculous amount. Not ridiculous. They do good things, but we weren't about to give them a 6% increase. We gave them a 12% increase, which is still more than the 3% we usually do. But if we go to the next slide, there's reasons why. So we didn't give them that much because the previous year they had a $75K increase, and they're not offering more, and they get funds from other sources. But that being said, 7% of the rides are from UO students, 110 trips taken by UO students during FY24, and they're projecting 140 trips by UO students in FY25. The reason there was less was the system expansion and termination of the e-scooter program. So that's why they think there's going to be more this year. And then there is a discount. So every unlock, every one of those trips is $1 less a student has to spend. Next slide. Rideshare, budget request, not a typical contract. It's Uber. So we just put money into this account, and then we set up the programs with UO Transport. CFC approved 155K. This is 5,000 more than we approved last than our benchmark, but there was reasons for this. We talked with UO Transport about the data and where people have been riding and why. And we decided, because of what they said, and I'll get to that a little bit more on the next slide, that they projected for next year on the high end 150K for the entire year. what we did is then we added 3% onto that, and that's how we get that 3% of 150K is $4,500. Then we added 500 because, in my opinion, looking at the data, it's not very consistent. Like November was 20,000 for the entire month, and then October was like 5,000, 6,000. So it's very like it really depends. So I think it's important to give a little bit more leadway to this, just in case it gets more popular and it's starting to hit that. I think what we've budgeted for here is good, because if we go down to the night rides, it was 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that was overlapping with duck rides, and we don't need to overlap with duck rides. ASUO contracts and departments shouldn't be competing. So we're reducing it to 12 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also, there was a lot of rides between 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. And that's not really the goal of our program. The goal of our program is to get people home late at night, not to get people to somewhere late at night. So that's what we're trying to do with this. So I think that'll be, and they have duck rides if they are trying to get somewhere at that time. And unfortunately, the 79X supplemental, we did not have enough funding for that, because there was, we weren't sure how much the average like monthly cost was going to be. But with the savings from the reducing those 2 hours, the healthcare rides should be able to be funded, and then we will start providing rides once a month to healthcare facilities. So knock on wood that finally gets set up. It's been a bit of a up and down on that. Next, and then also the 150 also comes from 175K wanted to be allocated to the program last year, but they did not get that. So next slide. And then this is just more that explained what I just explained already. And then 80% of the rides are between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. So cutting down from that will save a lot of money, and then we'll be able to fund other programs. And then there's just some average cost and average rides, or how many rides, some more data. If anyone has questions about that, they can ask me in the questions period. Next one. All right. Co-op Family Center. I'm sure everyone's heard of this at this point. So they have gotten down to the 865 that we allocated for them. This is less than what we gave them this fiscal year due to surplus. But we were able to give them another $100,000 because of OSA went out of service and left us with that money. So we put that money, we reinvest that right back into the into CFC. But next year there is the childcare RFP, and we do need to find another funding source, which I'm working with Falik and Brandon. So work with people. Hopefully we can get something going with that. 52 student families. These are both immigrant and GE families as well. So it's definitely it's a population that needs more support from us. And they also employ 40 students. More co-op family slides next. So here's their budget breakdown. As you can see, they increased their tuition for students 5%, and then for non-students to 6%. That increased, that covered the cost from the cut that we had to give them, that 4% cut, as you can see with the ASUO contract. If you all just want to look at that for a second, feel free. Next slide, if you all good. Next slide. All right, and then here is what they're proposed for the for this year for the cost. If you want to go to the next slide real quick, and you can compare and contrast like how much they increased from. We can compare and contrast from these tuitions to the other tuitions, and I will post this PowerPoint in the chat so you all can see this for yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to go back to the first slide really quick, so you can see like for example, the infant for full time was $300 on the previous one. Now it's going to be $315, and that is bi-weekly. That is a weekly cost for this. So next. All righty. And then this is the summary again. So all in all, we are asking for 1.4% increase, $42,931. And if we go to the last final slide, Yeah, that just breaks it down, makes it clear. Any questions?
Pinheiro, then Moreno, but I do have a question first. Just to clarify, so for the ride share,
Mhm.
you cut the hours
Yeah.
or the hours, but we're increasing the funding.
Yes.
Is what's the purpose for that?
Because I think it'll become more popular and it was 20K for 1 month when it was fully up and running, and that was just at the beginning of it. We do not have a lot of data. It's a moving target. This is our best guess, and I think what we're asking for is reasonable here. We had some of that money previously allocated from our benchmark from LTD. And I think that's a reasonable request
And
for that.
The guess is based off of the data started back in October.
Yes,
Okay. Pinheiro.
data from, yeah.
I have two questions. My first one is about the healthcare rides. I do believe last year when we were in Senate, we approved the pilot program in surplus funds.
Mhm.
And I thought that was already under operations.
No, it's
So
been a while because just Uber it was Lyft and then it was Uber. So resetting up even the night rides has been a different process with a different people, different system. And there's been multiple like bureaucratic things that have happened between Uber and the university, not even ASUO, that has been hard. And then the budgetary constraints, we were worried for a moment there that it was going to be 20K every single month. But the amount decreased a little bit. And then we looked at the data and we figured out how we were going to be able to save money. With the healthcare rides, we'll be paying for like the full ride. So full or half of the ride. So that will make the costs go up as well. So if that makes sense.
and how much of your budget did you put in towards the healthcare rides? Or is it all still the money from surplus? Or are you now budgeting for that?
No, this is all our money. This is from.
So where did the surplus funds go for that is my question.
They went to the last year's program.
But it never operated?
Not from my knowledge.
Can you expand?
Yeah, I'm concerned about that only because I recall that surplus request was about I think it was like 110, 130 something $1,000, and it was substantial, but it came at the end of the year, around the end of the year, and so if it never operated, I'm just wondering where that amount of money is going.
I was not told about that amount of money anywhere, but if any of the other folks from previous CFC could speak to that, I would love to hear it. But
Becky, are you able to speak on that?
yeah, if you're able to speak on that as well.
Hi all. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're wondering where the supplemental one-time funds that were allocated at some point last year, I can't remember if it was you all who did that or your predecessors. Those funds were put in the index associated with rideshare, and they are being spent.
On what they were designated for?
Absolutely.
For this year.
For the current year.
Okay.
Okay.
So those will go into for this year.
Thank you,
Once
Becky.
that starts up, it will go into.
Okay. And then I kind of share the same concerns as Speaker Lopez Dubois, that we're giving more money to them despite cutting their hours, especially because, we work with duck rides and we see them increasing their capacity to serve students as well. So I'm just a little concerned by having this group increase as well as duck rides increase. So did you ever have any communication with duck rides about any of this at all?
I was working with Kyle and we talked about this, and yeah, I think that in the future it would be better to have duck rides take on the transportation burden. But at the moment, I don't think it'd be great to just transition all the way to duck rides because duck rides isn't ready for that. Also, according to Becky, they didn't want to operate after 12 o'clock after midnight. So and Uber can operate after midnight pretty easily.
Yeah, we've been talking to them and that's not what the information that we're getting. So I would encourage you to maybe go back and I don't know. I think that's a really big mishap.
I'd be willing to
that you're
cut
sorry,
$500.
I'm speaking.
Oh.
But I think that's a really large mishap that you weren't communicating with these two services that are essentially doing the same thing. And I just really am not in favor of giving them a bunch more money that I don't think we've seen the need for that yet. And I don't think that's really fiscally responsible. I yield.
Senator Ludeman, then Senator Moreno, and then Ludeman.
Yeah, I would like some clarification also on the rideshare thing because there was a lot of you added on top of adding more. What is the difference between their final budget request and all of that you added?
They don't budget request. That's the thing with this contract is they don't budget request. We work with UO Transit, and then I also did work with Kyle, so I was in contact with Duck Rides via UO Transit and Kyle, so there was that interaction. And yes, Kyle did mention that they wanted to go past 12, but they still weren't ready for that at this point in time. Yes, and then your question in terms of, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, you answered it. I would just like to yield my time to Kyle.
Okay, if you have any.
Yeah, kind of throw my name a lot around here. We have worked together in some capacity. I have, multiple times spoke to this idea of increasing duck rides and moving away from rideshare. I admit that I'm not here in this meeting today saying let's shut down rideshare and go straight to duck rides. But I was under the impression that Jordan and I's move would be to increase duck rides. You'll see in our budget, we've been increasing duck rides both in student pay and in their operationality. To be completely honest, a lot of this request is coming off guard. I thought we were going to reduce this. I have some data about the time of day people are most using the Uber rides, and the hours between 10 and 12 are the most commonly used, and there's that overlap with duck rides. So I think pushing those hours back on the Uber contract is going to significantly reduce the amount of people that are using this. And personally speaking, I think this request is incorrect, and I think there will be excess here. That's just my thoughts. I do not stand by this.
Totally get that. I think the estimate of it 150K for the year is a little bit under. Again, if this goes back up to the 20K every month, we will run out of money. Yes, 80%. If you want to go back to the rideshare rider thing when you get a chance, 80% of the rides is from 10 p.m. to 12. That doesn't necessarily mean, and that should cut a lot, but we will be paying for other rides that are more money. That we will be fully funding a ride. Right now, all we do is we fund $7 of a ride. So we will be fully funding rides to healthcare facilities that are far away. So I really want to make sure we budget for that and have appropriate amount to cover that, because I think the healthcare rides is something that's really important and that we really should set up.
Yeah, before I go to Ludeman, I understand the importance of the healthcare ride, and I think it's been a great idea since the get-go. I will say DFC met with UO Transit this week. Maybe it was last week. I can't remember. It's been a week. And we learned that there's 4 new vans coming online, electric vans soon, and that they're planning on purchasing a second access shuttle. And so we know there's a demand, and as Kyle pointed out, there is a demand for more rides. And I think the thing I appreciate most about Duck Rides is that we're paying student workers and we're keeping the money here on campus. Yeah, that being said, Senator Ludeman.
My question was answered. I yield.
Senator Vo.
So first of all, I just want to say Jordan has been completely respectful this entire meeting. So the aggression that you guys are giving him, if you want to keep that energy, keep it with me. I can take it. I can't speak for Jordan. So yeah. And then another point that I have is instead of hawking over PFC's and CFC's budget, let's focus on our own committee first. Inflation is not 8%. That's all I want to say for that. And then for the rideshare, well, I see your point, Talik. I will say 5,000 can be let's say we don't spend that much money. We can adjust to that the year ahead. I understand that there is some plan for duck rides, but until I see something concrete, I don't see the point in moving it over until we want to fully transition. And my final point is that I don't actually agree with the idea that, and I understand the sentiment of, we want to support services that are ran by our students and we want to pay our students. But at the same time, in my opinion, I can be completely wrong. I mean, I wish we could have some transportation or, 3 p.m., professor that explains this process, but there is a reason why taxis have been beat by rideshare services for the last 5 or 6 years. It's the duck ride services. Although ideally I would want to give money to students that are running that, it's not sustainable long term. You have to deal with depreciating costs with the vans. You have to, as you add more vans to cover for all these students, you have to add more space for that. In terms of infrastructure, it's not. I don't know. I don't have the word for that right now because I'm just really pissed off. But yeah, I mean, it's just not sustainable. It's just not. I yield.
Deputy Speaker Garrity and then Senator Bauman.
So if you guys cannot already tell, I'm actually in a really terrible spot. So if you could raise your placards a little bit higher so I can see them, that would be great. Thank you.
Senator Bauman, then Moreno.
Will these, if these funds aren't used, will they just go straight back into surplus? Okay.
Yes. I assume CFC works the same way. Unless it doesn't, you vote to carry forward.
Yeah. It would go to their carry.
That's a Becky question.
Okay. Just need to get you a microphone, Vic.
Oh, I got one. Hi, y'all. The way CFC's allocations work, funds are allocated into an index like the department's budgets and are depleted throughout the year. If funds remain, they remain in that index. CFC also has authority to reallocate within contract indexes at the end of a fiscal year for any funds remaining.
Senator Moreno.
Yeah, I would like to respond to a couple of things that Senator Vo said. The first being that the nature of how these committees work is that what we approve and these budgets impact the other committees. So I don't think that saying we should just focus on our own committees is very valid. I think we should be heavily involved. And also, I know that Kyle has some data on the impact of duck rides. So I would like to yield to Kyle if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Well, I have some data from duck rides. I was really referencing data from Uber that I received. I'm just going to share a little graph that's provided by Rachel Glaser from the Transportation Department right now. Kind of showing the ridership throughout the month of November. Again, November was the first month we were able to collect data on this program this year. The first full month. We started collecting data on October 23rd. So I'd also like that to be pointed out kind of as we're looking over this data. Those 7 days are not reflected in the full month. There's a few more things in here. I do want to address the comments from above. I really apologize if I came off as aggressive. Certainly not my intention, and I hold nothing but the highest respect for Jordan. I did want to be clear with my intentions, though, that as I've been going through this process, I have been working with Jordan, and I would not really aware of this contract and where it was going. I thought we had kind of come to a different agreement to slowly roll things back, which I thought was a great way of action. Obviously, this is Jordan's committee, and if this is the way the committee feels, I have nothing more to say about that. That is their decision to make. They don't want to I do. But again, yeah, I apologize if I came off as aggressive. I just wanted to know my intention because I did not want to use my name as a credibility to his stance and to kind of speak for me. Yes, if anyone else would like to speak, I do have the data. I do believe the strap though is the most important. I've been talking about like the timeshare at the end of switch between duck rides.
And I didn't need to throw your name under the duck ride, I suppose. Yeah, so I when I say work with you, we obviously had disagreements. I think that I do love duck rides. It goes back into the university system. It obviously doesn't just go to some company in Silicon Valley, and I think that's important. The decision that CFC made was just based on kind of the data we had and what we thought was a good idea. And so yeah, I didn't mean to like say that you were validating our thing. Nor did I mean to surprise you, but yeah, thanks. Yeah. All good.
Pinheiro next. Before we go, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job keeping it cordial. But I do want to remind folks, like, this is the time to look at these budgets. You all represent schools and departments, and it is your job to speak up and if there's concerns. So I appreciate those that have been shared, but let's just keep it simple. Yeah.
I agree. That's why we're here. We have this meeting so that everyone can ask questions about each other's budgets because everyone is voting on it. So I don't think that's a very acceptable thing to say in this meeting, that people can't be digging into other committees' business. Obviously, I'm not trying to tell people how to run their committee, but I'm allowed to ask questions. And I'm also allowed to direct respect from individuals, not be talked over. I don't think it's being aggressive, it's being stern. I apologize that I'm a woman that gets talked over often, but I just demand a certain amount of respect. And lastly, we were not talking about an 8% inflation increase. The 8% increase was going towards all of the different aspects that Kyle had listed in the presentation. So for those senators, just please be careful what you're saying because we're all going to vote on this at the end of the day. And I don't want misinformation to be scouring around. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the facts and vote and make a fiscally responsible decision. I yield.
Scro, then Ludeman. Oh, Jordan, go for it.
Okay, I totally didn't talk over. I was just trying to ask them. Yeah. Okay, yeah, all good.
Scro.
Hi. I'm trying to wrap my head around this and how I kind of feel about this as well. I think my initial personal opinion or just kind of idea, because I'm an active user of the night rides as well. I think that despite you cutting the out, like I think people still use Uber regardless that it's still more accessible and more a go-to for people than duck rides, that regardless of you cutting the 2 hours off the earlier side, people will still use that and therefore not get the discount, which I don't know if you're trying to then that's taking money away from students who are using that program in a way. I don't know how totally relevant that is. That's just like a kind of thought that I had. And so I also wanted to clarify because I just want you to explain it a little bit. If you were to just keep the 2 hours on the earlier side, how would that affect that budget?
It would, so every one of those, every 600 times 7 is how much we spent in that 1 hour period.
Okay.
If that makes sense, because we're giving $7 and the average rise is $14. So we're paying for half of their rides. And I totally get, yeah, people still use Uber, even though, and Duck Rides has gotten a lot better. They have an app now, just an FYI.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah. And so with that, train of thought, 1 second. Yes, people still use it, but I don't feel like that's CFC or even ASUO's, specifically Uber and CFC's responsibility to get people around between those times, especially because Duck Rides is already operating at those times. So if they want a completely free ride, then they should probably learn how to use that system. Obviously, there's outreach that we can do and stuff like that. And so I think for the Uber night rides, the goal of this program is to get people home safe. Or get people to important places that they need to go.
That's fair. That's a good point. Thank you so much. I yield.
Yeah, of course.
Ludeman.
Yeah, I just want to express my support for this budget and kind of going off of what Senator Vo said. Duck Rides doesn't have the facilities to support all of the student body. I don't see it necessary to cut down the ride share extensively and doing that to Duck Rides just because they just don't have the facilities. And Senator Scro said, it's just not accessible. I also think that rideshare was advertised very poorly. So I can see that as we do better with that and create more awareness, then more people will be using it, even if we cut down the hours. And I think if that's implemented, then we'll see a more consistent number of users with the rideshare. I yield.
Anybody else? And I do want to express my gratitude for cutting down the hours of that, because I know before we were sort of in a place where Duck Rides and the Night Rides program were both competing at the same time, which are both IFE funded programs, as you know. So I think that's been incredibly beneficial. So I appreciate you and your committee working on that. Scro.
Wanted to triple check. I was going to go ahead and make a motion, but want to check with you the number. $3,191,260.
Aren't we gonna approve all of them at the end? We're gonna let
okay.
everyone.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, thank you though. Yeah.
I yield.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay, I'll invite Deputy Speaker and PFC Chair Garrity to present PFC report. I think this one is usually down. I can't see. That one's too far. This one's behind. They might hire more. Oh, I got it.
I was just really mad, and my first response to attack, and that shit happened.
Thank you.
Okay, this feels a little bit familiar. Um, just kidding. Yeah, so I guess before I wanted to start my presentation, I did want to kind of echo some sentiments that have already been said today. I know from the committee perspective, Chair Richardson said this to me last night. From the committee perspective, things can feel very adversarial sometimes. It can feel like we're going against each other. And I think the important thing to remember, whether you're academic, DFC, CFC, or PFC, or even just watching, is that we all want the same common goal for our students. We want to make sure that they feel supported on campus. We want to make sure that they have adequate resources. And I think at the end of the day, as we're hashing out these budgets and everything, just echoing the theme of respect. And yeah, if we want to go ahead. All right, so today I wanted to go over our benchmark, kind of how hearings operated and the scorecards. Then I wanted to rehash the African Student Association situation, and then we can go into questions. Next. So our original benchmark, if you remember, a long time ago, we all voted on the 2,136,000 benchmark. That was an 11.8% increase from fiscal year 25. But as things have changed and money has been moved around, our new benchmark that PFC has been operating under is $2,188,536. This is a 14% increase from fiscal year 25, and that was decided by the chairs because there is just a general need to increase the I-fee. We're all running out of funds. Next slide. This is budgets of PFC over time. You can see very low numbers in 2015, 2016, slowly rising until 2020, 2021. Then like really rising in 22, 23. And now we are over the 2 million threshold for PFC, which I think is a first and is really exciting for student organizations and our ability to serve student organizations here on campus. Next slide. So going over all of the data and budgets that I've collected from orgs as we've been approving them, this is kind of the general idea of sort of the disbursement of funds between orgs. As we can see, most orgs fall under the $20,000 threshold, with a few reaching over the $60,000 threshold. Just an FYI, I did take out Senate and exec from this kind of graph because they are major outliers in this situation. And I didn't think that they were necessarily representative of the total student population. So yeah, and I think the ones above 60,000 are cultural orgs. I think MECHA comes to mind immediately. I'm completely forgetting the other one, but I do know that it's a cultural org that has been here on campus for a really long time. And I think as we kind of go over the 20,000 threshold, that's probably the majority of our tier 4 orgs, which again have usually been on campus for a long time and have really established themselves as student organizations here. Next slide. So kind of going over how our hearings happened during this budget season. Luckily today we actually have quorum. Just kidding. So as we go over hearings and as we meet with student organizations, we look primarily at 2023, 2024 budgets and spending. This includes ledgers, ledgers, end of the year reports, and attendance records. And we are primarily looking at the percentage of original budgets spent within their ledgers. This is the budgets that were allocated by PFC in 22, 23. And then as some of you may remember, we use a scorecard system. And just to reiterate, the scorecard was not a definite, it was just providing guidance to us as we went through our allocation process. Really what we wanted to emphasize during our budget hearings as PFC is listening to the organization's needs and not just automatically prescribing dollars to them. We felt like that wasn't going to be fair, and at the end of the day, these are orgs that know their communities inside and out. They know their needs, they know what they want to do in the future, and they know how they're going to do those things. And it's not fair of us as PFC to automatically prescribe methods or processes or dollars to them. And we just wanted it to be a more holistic process than I think most of us on the committee have experienced before. Then we also followed the TOS model to determine approval of tier movements. I think with the TOS model, a lot of what we saw was attendance requirements and end of the year reports. Those were really big barriers for orgs in moving tiers. And I know that as PFC, we are all committed to working with our orgs past the budget season and making sure that they're able to achieve the goals and the tiers that they want to in the future. Next slide. So just to reiterate, we really wanted to be intentional about listening to the needs of our orgs while still considering fiscal responsibility. With orgs, there's really, really high turnover rates in leadership. And I think honestly, an org is lucky if they get like an actual genuine finance person as their treasurer. It's not often that you see that. And so there's a lot of misinformation or misunderstanding of how budgets or finances work within orgs. And it's a really, really, really high learning curve. And you can see that time and time again in organizations, and you'll hear that from leadership to leadership. There's always want and there's always movement to improve, transitions. Does that always happen? Not really, but I think as we kind of move forward from COVID and as our communities become stronger and stronger and stronger, and as PFC kind of meets the needs of our orgs, and we'll see that begin to change. And overall, I'm sure that everybody knows PFC was in hearings like Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I think that I spent a lot of hours in the EMU. I don't really want to count how many hours I spent in the EMU. And in total, we funded 163 organizations this budget cycle, which is awesome. Next slide, please. So this is the scorecard that we used. We went over the end of the year report. That was kind of a bonus point. It was either completed or not completed. Then we used percentage spending. That is really kind of where our understanding of organizations' funding came from. Yeah, you can see the different percentages. I don't really want to go over it because I've had to look at it so much. And then the point allocation is just percentage spent plus end of the year report, completed or not completed. And that kind of determined the general idea of where an increase, decrease, or freeze should be for an org. And like I said, the scorecard wasn't definitive. It was just kind of a guiding process. So like if an org that received 1 point like came in requesting, a 20% increase, we would kind of be like, let's scale it back down a little bit. Let's start with the money that we know that we can spend, and then we can work our way up to money like that. So overall, I would say we really tried to be collaborative. And I think with a lot of orgs, we kind of succeeded that goal. I think that there is still a lot of work to be done within PFC because of how our relationship with organizations have been in the past and how they continue to be. Next slide. So I think before I want to go over the ASA budget, I just wanted to express my gratitude to all of my PFC members. It was a lot of long nights, and I think that they did a really great job of trying to make sure that the needs of orgs were met and that their orgs feel heard and that our orgs were at least somewhat satisfied in this process. I know that a few organizations that I'm really, really proud of through this funding process were ones like Mujeres. We moved them from tier 3 to tier 4. And I remember that budget hearing. It was like so exciting to see them do that because they had spent all of this time like getting all of the right documentations, all of the right everything to make sure that they could move up. And it was just so gratifying for everybody, I think, in that budget process. It was really, really exciting. Another one that I'm really excited for as they go into the next fiscal year is National Association for Music Education. They wanted to be tier 3, and they had I think tried the past few years, like the past year or something, and they had been denied at least once. And this time around, like they had all of the right documentation, all of the right everything. And I was told like after their budget hearing, when they were finally approved for tier 3, they like went outside and they were like, see, that's what happens when you have the right documentation. And like they were out in the hallway celebrating. It was so exciting to hear all of that. And so I think all of the hard nights that we had, all of the orgs budgets that, you know, we might have like beat ourselves up over. Just remember that there's so many organizations out there right now that are so happy with how this budget process turned out for them. Yeah. And so I just wanted to rehash the African Student Association situation because there's been a lot of updates within the past week about that. And Senator Mohammed, if there's anything that I'm missing, please feel free and I can yield to you. So as I said the other day, ASA, and you can also see this, I think, in the chat that I just sent, hopefully, if I actually remember to send it. ASA is currently a tier 4 option 4 organization with a budget of $36,970. They've been receiving stipends for at least 10 years, and you can see that in the IFE budget book of this year, and you're going to be able to see it from last year. And they serve around 200 students. They are one of 2 orgs on campus that is focused on serving African students specifically, the other one being Ghanaian Student Association. They submitted their original budget for the next fiscal year by the request deadline, which I believe was October 25th. Their original budget request was $52,590, and their original tier request was the same, tier 4 options 4, and that would have kept their stipends at $12,870. And then just to reiterate, they did not submit revisions until the 30th. So what, like 2 days ago? Days are just flying by. Next slide. So this is their ledger for this year. I wanted to go over this just so everybody can have an understanding of ASA is not a defunct organization. They are still very much active, and this can be reflected in their ledger. As you can see with the stipend expense totals, they've been withdrawing the correct expenses and the correct amounts for their leadership. And then you can go look down at the programming expense totals. If you look at all of the fall line items, and I think movie night, fall open house has $403 withdrawn from it. Fall cooking night has its entirety, $500 withdrawn from it. There's nothing in that line item anymore. Movie night is also completely withdrawn from 500. And I double check this with their recorded events and their Instagram and everything, and that is correct. They've been having open houses, they've been having cooking nights, they've been having a movie night. All of this is reflected on their Engage, all of this is reflected on their Instagram. They're still very much active. Next slide. And then just going over the summary statistics, they've spent 15% of their original budget, which is, I believe, to be appropriate. And you can see the total expenses and the remaining balance left, which is 31,000 of their original 36,000, meaning that there's a difference of 5,000. Next slide. And then looking over their ledger from the past 10 years that has been provided in the IFE budget book, you can see kind of how their budget has changed over time. 12,000, going from 12,000 in 2015 to 36,000 in 24. And they're, I would say, appropriate increases. Next slide. So this is kind of where the new updates come in. Senator Mohammed met with ASA on Thursday to discuss their budget request. This was with their president, Rodolin, and their secretary, Daniel. ASA shared community concerns about their events, accessibility to ASUO from cultural organizations, and the potential of not being able to serve their community in the future. There is a really big emphasis that they pushed from their community of their community's concern of not being able to host their staple event, which is Africa Night. Yeah, and I guess kind of to further that is Senator Mohammed and I, we sat down with them for quite a few minutes. Senator Mohammed like really listened to them, and I'm really proud of that. And we went over their budget request and talked about what their revisions should look like. And as we were going through that, and as I was showing them how to look at their budget requests and how to look at the revisions, we got to the page where revisions should be, and there is absolutely no comments from softs or anything. They could not see any of the revisions requested by SOFs. The president told me that she had been checking multiple times throughout the past few months, like almost every single day, and never saw any revisions or requests from SOFs at all, which I can show you on the next slide is not the case at all. And I think, wait, sorry. I can show you on the next slide, sorry, that I could see the revisions, she couldn't. And then ASA, after working through the budget, had submitted revisions after the meeting, and those revisions, or had submitted revisions in kind of the new budget, and those have been sent back by SOFs for other revisions. Next slide. So this is what a usual like budget and revision request looks like. You can see kind of I'm so sorry guys for the setup. You can see that on one hand, you have the outline of the budget, and if you go through the different tabs, then you can see additional information and the budget structure. And to the right, you can see the request history. You can see submitted ASUO Finance, which has the comments and the revision requests. And then you can see at the top, returned for revision. If you go to the next slide, this is what it looked like for Rodelin. You could not see anything. There was no comments, no nothing. I don't know why that occurred, but I think that's something really to really take into consideration, because it's just unfortunate, and for lack of a better term, it's just unfortunate. And I wish that we had known that prior, and I wish that we could have done something earlier about that. Next slide. So I guess with that, and as we discussed before, PFC is kind of at the place where we are looking to really just cover their stipends right now. They were very, very understanding of the situation from our perspective when we met with them on Thursday. We're looking to cover their stipends because stipends isn't something that you can pull from surplus, and that will keep their tier at tier 4. And we think with the work that they've been putting in, all of the things that they've been doing, that's fair. It wouldn't be fair of us to completely deprive them of their tier or completely deprive them of their funding, because the fact of the matter is that they are still an operational org. They're still operating at tier 4 levels. And I know that I don't think that I could be in this position anymore if I knew that I defunded a cultural org. So that's kind of PFC's ask, is maybe consider reserving $12,870. If it really comes to it, PFC is also willing to revise our own budgets and look at other orgs' budgets and see if we can kind of supplement those funds. But also considering how kind of collaborative the rest of the process was, that we don't think that's entirely fair to our other student organizations to go through all of those meetings and go through those conversations and then deprive them of the funds that we worked collaboratively on. So yeah, that's kind of it for the PFC thing.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, hold them up really quick. Sorry, Lou, just give me. Go ahead, Ludovic.
I just want to clarify. So ASA stipends are not currently a part of the budget you requested of like 288 or
No,
they're not currently.
Nothing
Okay.
ASA is currently included in the budget.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Mohammed.
ASA is actually my tag, and they were one of the first few tags to reach out to me to discuss their budget. And when I sat down with them on Thursday, I was kind of surprised. I honestly thought that they were behind. But like Tira said, the revisions requested by SOF simply did not display on their computers whatsoever. It was really odd, and I've never seen that before. So when I talked to them, we related a lot because when I was a part of MSA, there was also a huge learning curve. And I learned that or similarly to MSA, our operations affect not just our student populations, but also the community in Eugene. And for ASA, even beyond that, African students and attendees come from OSU, Seattle, and even Vancouver, Canada. So I would highly recommend that not just their stipends, but their entire budget, including their increase, is funded, because they told me that
very often, and especially the president, she's been part of the organization for the past 4 years. Every single year, nearly all of their exec members have contributed their own funds into their organization, which is horrible because when I asked them about if they're familiar about the reimbursement process, they were, but it hadn't really fully worked out for them, which definitely does happen for student org leaders. Like sometimes it's not accepted or sometimes it's sent back and forth, stuff like that. So, also their Africa Night is a really well produced event. It's the end of the year, which is why like only 15% of their budget has been spent because such a huge event is like almost like week 9 of spring term. And it pulls again a lot of people, like 280 to 350 people in the past couple years come to that event. So I just really, really, really want to emphasize that ASA deserves this money very much. They reach so many people, and like what Tiara was saying on Wednesday night was exactly what their secretary was saying, that like if this budget is cut short even just a little bit, it will affect so many people negatively. If they ever want to engage more people, especially with how the current administration is going on right now, it will affect them very negatively. So I think ACO should just be very considerate with this and to please, please, please fund them and to please listen to us as student leadership leaders. Thank you. I yield.
I think, sorry, I think with that is, if we have to pull from other funds, if, we have to pull from, which I really don't want to, because I agree that all of us are our own kind of, we all know our committee is the best. If we have to pull from other committees, then that's fine. If we have to raise the I fee, then that's also fine. But like I also said on Wednesday, I've had the experience of having my budget cut, and I know the impact that it will have on the community personally. When the NASU budget was cut, I honestly considered like just dropping out of school because I came here with the intention that this would be a school that would foster my Native identity, and that was something that I really needed after going K through 12. I was constantly subject to narratives that told me that my indigeneity was not okay. And I cannot imagine having a freshman come onto campus and going to ASA with the intention of having a community, having a place to foster their identities, and then having that immediately revoked from them as soon as they step onto campus. So,
Senator Potter.
First off, I just wanted to share my support for particularly funding the stipends for ASA. I think, well, just like for myself, like I couldn't even imagine one of like the Jewish spaces that I frequent every Friday night being defunded. I think that would like literally crush me. That is how I like connect to my ancestors and my mom. And then secondly, I was wondering if you were to pull from other orgs, how would you decide which orgs you pulled from and how much funding? Just because, like you said, it is a collaborative discussion that you had during the budget season. I yield.
I think that is something that PFC has yet to discuss because that's our absolute last resort. The way that I kind of imagine it going, and if anybody from PFC on Senate or behind me has any further thoughts, my immediate kind of answer to that question is we would just go solely based off of the scorecard.
Senator Moreno.
Hi, I was hoping that you could explain a little bit about if we do fund these stipends, how they're still going to operate at the level that they did this year with all their events, and is the plan just to go to surplus?
The plan right now is to work with them through the end of the year one-on-one and really urge them to go to surplus either at the beginning of the year or throughout the year to make sure that they can supplement those funds and hopefully maybe even work with them on other fundraising initiatives.
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Fisher.
Hi, I really I'm in support of funding their stipends, and I also just wanted to commend this year's PFC, I think the difference between this year and last year is insanely immense. Like, as somebody that had to go through the budget process last year for my org, and then this year my org had to go through appeals, you guys were incredibly understanding. And even just like sitting and watching it was great. All the budget hearings I've been to, I think that you're changing it like for the better, and it's really nice to see. And I do think it's like really unfortunate that this situation is the way that it is, but I also do think that like these student orgs and these cultural orgs are like the heart of our campus and the work that we do. And I just was curious if we funded their stipends or funded them in full and had to take from other committees' budgets, what that would look like with DFC, for example. That's my question.
I would say immediately, like, that is pulling from other committees is like also kind of, I don't know, not the popular opinion in PFC, because I think that it can really create some divide, and that's not what I want to do. If if Senate did decide to pull from other committees, then what that would look like is either like is most likely disapproving of their budgets that they're bringing, like their actual budgets now that they are bringing to the floor, and then sending them back to committee and then having them revise it.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
And just as a note to that, if Senate does wish to send any committee back to sort of revise after we're done deliberating, that is certainly that's something that we can do. I'm going to yield my time to President Hassan. Could you give her the microphone so folks on Zoom can hear?
Okay, I just briefly wanted to talk about this a little bit and try not to get emotional, but I have been to Africa Night, and my roommates both were very involved, and like ASA is such an amazing community, and when I went to Africa Night, it was such a big thing for me to be a part of that. I want to stress that the 5% cap that we have is not, we don't have to stay at 5%. And I say this because I might have not said this before, but specifically with the new administration, having a community is so important now, because for me personally, I find myself going home to Portland every weekend because I need it. And I can't survive on this campus without it. And I've wanted to leave so many times. So I can't imagine a group of students coming on campus now and not having that. And I don't want you to go back and pull from other communities as well, because I feel like those communities also need that money. And so to go back and pull from someone else to give ASA when we can go to, I will go to the Board of Trustees and talk to them about this. I can do that, and I can talk to President Schultz if it means that we fund this organization to the fullest extent we can, not just their stipends, because students need this. And Africanite, I know, I think we went together, Sama, and it was literally such an amazing experience. And the amount of different performers, I think they brought a tiger or something, or a cheetah, and it was just such a, like, it was so fun. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate that the only option isn't just to go back, and that we do have that opportunity to raise it if needed for these students. So
Senator Wu, then Senator Bauman.
Hi, I just wanted to emphasize my full support to fund ASA stipends. I wanted to speak just a bit about my own experiences with the finance learning curve and the difficulty and fear that an organization can have to talk to ASUO. From my own experience, the learning curve is 100% really, really difficult. And the fear and nervousness just to talk to ASUO and the courage that it takes is extremely difficult. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations can relate with. So I want to urge senators to not only try to support this or think about supporting it, but to avoid PFC having to pull from their budgets and take away from other organizations' promised amounts. Me personally, that is the absolute last thing that I would want, because I don't want to have worse relations with other organizations, especially because not only this PFC, but other PFCs have worked to make relations better with organizations. And if we choose not to help ASA, I'm worried that this decision will be marked in history and not forgotten among the community and organizations. From my experience with cultural organization VSA, it was remembered within multiple years when ASUO did not help us and when we did not feel supported. And that's the last thing that I want for ASA. The thing that I hope we can all agree on is that the last thing we want is to have our students at UO feel unsupported, which I hope can help everyone think about approving this motion. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Bauman.
I definitely want to express my full support for this. I do think it's really important that people have access to community. Would it be possible for ASUO to like help them fundraise maybe? Like put on like some like an auction or something, or like some kind of event that could fundraise, like help them fundraise with just like in partnership with them. That way it wouldn't pull too much of their costs, and hopefully like it wouldn't pull too much from their budget, and hopefully like they would get more, like they would get like, it would be a way to like help them increase their budget in a way that like could like in a way that would like could like also like increase community outreach.
I do agree with the sentiment. However, as a cultural org leader myself, if ASUO, knowing the history of NASU and the relationship with ASUO that we've had, if ASUO were to reach out and say, we can't fund your budget, but we can help fundraise, as a cultural org leader myself, I would feel like that was a very, 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 very paternalistic thing to do and very degrading. So that is not something that I am open to.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. I yield.
I'm going to yield my time to Chair Richardson and then Senator Ducharme.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Chair, for that great presentation. I really appreciate you fleshing out that situation, and I definitely am in support of these continuing the support for ASA. I also really wanted to echo the sentiments made by Miriam. We can go over, and I know it's for a lot of people not the best situation, but given the circumstances we're in, I mean, there's high inflation, there's changes, student orgs need support, departments need support, CFC it's actually a very reasonable increase. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Given kind of these external factors, especially, the new administration, the kind of concerns over enrollment, I think all of our requests combined are very good. I would hate to see Tierra have to go back and make cuts from other student orgs to fund this. And I know my committee would really hate to go back and have to pull some funds and reduce some services for departments. Right now, and I'm going to be cautious, I'm going to preface this with I'm not entirely sure if these numbers are all accurate, but what I'm seeing right now is 5.2% it would be enough to cover all of these increases. ASA can have their stipends. Everything that you've heard today can be funded. And what I'm hearing from TFAB, the Tuition and Fees Advisory Board, is they're kind of concerned too. They're having the same conversation that there's uncertainty, there's fear about what's going to happen over the next few years. And I know they're unconfident in their enrollment numbers, and I do think that there's a good chance this can go through the president, or like get passed by the president. I know there's additional scrutiny, and many of you are probably concerned that if it doesn't go through, we're going to be right back here soon, which is a risk. Yes, I know nobody wants to give up another Saturday, but I absolutely think it is a worthwhile risk. I think it's worth pushing through. I think we've all worked really hard to support these students, and I think let's fight for it and let's push it. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Ducharme.
Before we go on, Kyle, can you put in the numbers for the 52,000 request for ASA? Yeah, I can give you a second too if I want to go over to whoever's next on speakers.
Senator Ducharme.
Hi. Yeah, so this organization is doing everything they can to work within the system. Stuff's not working. They deserve support from us. I think sounds like everyone's pretty much in agreement on that. So I have like procedural questions on this, right? So do we want to just, is it PFC's desire, if we want to give them a budget through through the annual budget process, that they get the full 52,000 amount? Or would you like the budget to be sent back to committee for you to more granularly consider their budget request?
I'm gonna defer to my PFC people. Do we want to reconvene as a committee and decide then, or do we want to decide now on the floor? Because that is not my decision, that is y'all's decision too, Bagley. Going to committee to decide whether or not we are going to cut from other orgs, or if we are going to like raise the I fee and pull from there.
My question is specifically, what do you want for? I would like the budget increase. The whatever amount ASA will get next year to come from raising the I fee. So my question is, and the I fee tracker has currently been updated. The 5.2 increase includes the stipends, but does not include their actual budget, right, for extra operating. So I want to know if I can trust that 37, the 52,000 number, and like that's what that should be included in the official motion for the PFC's budget for the coming fiscal year. Or if you would like it to go back and.
There's an answer to your question. I'm going to have Becky answer it if you would. Thank you.
In addition to the situation y'all are discussing, there is also a budget that is missing, maybe I'm going to use that term with a question mark, from PFC's allocation column. It is the American Marketing Association. And the I-fee tracker is recording that funds were allocated to the American Marketing Association. And I'd like for PFC, I don't know, can you just comb your memory files? This could take a minute. To determine whether funds were allocated or not. This
No.
could be a 12, no?
No.
So beautiful. So let me remove that from your tracker because your amount is off. It is higher than on the front page by $12,000. So you're going to have a little bit more wiggle room. Hold on, please. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. The situation with AMA is that they submitted their budget requests. We're late on revisions, and then we reached out asking them to schedule an appeals hearing, but then they reached out this Monday. And so we are done with appeals hearings. As for going back to Ducharme, can you restate your question concisely, please? Sorry, didn't mean it like that.
To make sure that ASA has an operating budget for next year, what should the motion for the PFC budget for next year be?
Yeah, I think going back to that question is, I understand the argument for $52,000. I think that has to go back. That whole discussion has to go back to PFC. PFC needs to reconvene and needs to decide where exactly we are going to fund them. Like if it's the full 52,000 or if it's something lower than that.
I believe that she wants to convene the committee before deciding on a.
I think if the idea is already to raise the I fee, I think that we just shoot for the 52K additionally, if the idea is already to raise the I fee.
Okay, I yield.
Senator Withers, then Cole, then Moreno.
I was just wondering, I don't have access to the IFE tracker, and
You signed in with your personal account
is it on the
for
the
the
SharePoint?
Mhm.
I'm in it right now, and I'm looking up 25 IFE tracker.
So you go into incidental fee.
Yes.
Then you go into. What is
26.
it?
Oh, okay. Is it the IFE budget projections? And
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You.
I yield.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, really quickly, I just also want to express my full support for increasing the IFE for the full amount. I don't think there's a reason to take from other committees or other orgs. They didn't see the revisions. There was nothing they could have done differently to meet our timeline. Therefore, there's no reason they're punished for some sort of technical error, whatever happened. We have to meet them where they're at, which is they did not see the revision, so they probably thought they were good. Like there was no reason for them to know they needed to reach out because they didn't see anything. So I just want to express my full support and I yield.
Senator Moreno.
I also support a full $52,000 budget for ASA, and also question, if I make a motion to send them back to committee, can we still have discussion after?
Just so everybody's on the same page, if we give ASA a full budget, it would be a 5.7% increase.
Thank you. To answer your question, Senator Moreno, yes.
I move to send the program's finance committee back to committee.
Motion made by Moreno, seconded Fisher. On speakers is still Peters and Fisher.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, they're 5 points, right?
Yes.
Scorecard. So for context, that means that they met every single requirement and are slated for a 20% increase. These are the organizations that we would typically grant their full request because they have proved to be fiscally responsible over years. So I am also personally in favor of funding the full 52,000.
Senator Fisher.
I yield.
Senator Pinheiro.
I just had a clarifying question about Kyle's math. But is that the 5.7% after the AMA fix? Okay, so it might be lower then.
2,188,000. It is now 2,240,000, reflecting that huge increase. And plus the CFC requested budget and the DFC requested budget brings us to a total IFE budget of 10,483,000. And with that, we need 5.7.
Okay, cool. I yield.
Anybody else? Let's vote. Moreno.
I don't know if you said this, but did you have like a budget hearing type of meeting with ASA?
No, because the last meeting that we had with them was budget resubmission.
Okay.
We have not had a hearing, but there are some orgs that we don't have hearings for if like PFC is all in agreement that like their budget is okay, they're good.
Yeah, and I know that in some of the budget hearings that I was in, you guys went line item by line item to see if there was anywhere that there was, excess. Is that something that you did or looked at the ledger for?
I think considering the situation and like Senator Mohammed said, I don't think that, and considering like what everybody else is saying today, I don't think that we're going to go line item by line item. If PFC is in agreement that their budget is good and that the increase is good, if Senate is in agreement that their budget is good and that the increase is good, then I'm fine not going line item by line item. I think that it's also not necessarily fair to not give them a voice in that process because that was a really huge part of PFC's deliberations with student organizations, is that they had a voice in deciding which line items they cared more about or needed more in. And then also just to reiterate, ASA did receive 5 points on the scorecard system, which by PFC standards, we usually grant those increases in full.
Thank you, I yield.
Senator Ducharme.
Hi. So, I mean, I wanted to defer to PFC here, and from what I'm hearing and my understanding from at least 4 members of PFC, I think we should not just send them to committee and then vote to give the $2.24 million result. If PFC says, no, you're misunderstanding, I'm happy to vote otherwise. But currently, I'm planning on voting no on sending them to committee. And then hopefully we can make the motion to fund ASA in full.
I call the question. Peters. I'm sending you to committee.
No,
Lopez. Mohammed. Vo. Potter. Ackman. Pinheiro. Moreno. Fisher. Withers. Ramirez Pineda. Nagarajan. Wu.
Nay.
Esbeck. Pagtalunan. Scrow.
Nay.
Dillon. Ludeman. Nauman. Ducharme.
Nay.
Cole. So Jenkins Hiscox. Garrity.
Nay.
I say nay as well. Motion is not adopted. Questions, motions?
The AMA number.
The AMA number, I think considering the circumstances that they kind of, oh,
For procedural note, they do have this about committee. I said, not just put in a new number.
That's what I thought.
we're trying new things, okay?
I don't think we can just start editing the sheet. Pinheiro.
I move to send PFC to committee.
Motion made by Pinheiro, seconded Moreno. Is there any discussion? Peters, Lopez, Mohammed, Bo, Potter, Ackman, Pinheiro, Moreno, Fisher, Withers,
Aye.
Ramirez Pineda,
Aye.
Nagarajan, Wu,
Aye.
Esbeck, Magdalena, Scro, Dillon, Ludeman, Bauman, Ducharme, Cole, Jenkins Hiscox, Garrity.
Aye.
And I say aye as well. The motion's adopted. The committee should convene, and the Senate will be in recess and subject to the chair.
Lopez, bring your laptop. Please, yes.
I don't think that it matters.
No, I don't think that it matters. Yeah. Yeah. I put that together like during your presentation.
Yes, no, I agree. I'm glad you see that. Not a lot of people.
No, it's.
We're also, we haven't, ASUO hasn't instituted a lot or basically all in the last 3 years. So it's like, it's currently less expensive than it was 3 years ago. So now, yeah.
Okay. Which is unfortunate. I think like everything's fucking.
The other part is, the amount we're adding, well, it's like $40 over the course of your entire, it's already spread out across your entire. Right, you're paying an extra $3 every 3 months. Yeah, like it's not. This is not where we're at.
So we have a cap load on it.
We have a hard cap at 7%, and then it's a trigger for the board to approve.
So if we just pass the 4%. Yeah. Yes.
It would be really fun. It would be really fun. If they decided to, I honestly can't.
Yeah, I'm glad because at first I was kind of nervous about it, but I think it makes more sense. I was confused about thinking that everyone did but now I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah, so I was spent. So when we voted earlier. Thank you. They use that out there. Well. That's my so if they stand with me,
We don't, I don't believe that we come back as a Senate. I think that we as an institution appeal their thing to the higher education coordinator. To the
I
state
saw IC tracker for like a couple.
oversight.
Yeah, I just figured, I was like. And then what, we requesting like access on this.
No, we just say override. their
Yeah,
decision.
make the board again. And then what if they say no?
Then we lose.
Then we come back, we still have to approve the budget.
Well, then maybe.
Yeah.
There, okay, so it's in the IP authorization policy.
Not that, which is what they were saying.
Okay.
But we have this two students.
Very much.
One. Like, if you.
That's what they're gonna say. Right. Yeah, I'll see that.
I'll see him for football games and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that I think is more convenient than an Uber or Lyft because Uber's and Lyft, like I can't really get.
Yeah, I
like
honestly wonder if it
it's
makes
easier
more
to
sense
just try to get it done.
fast.
I've never done it, so I'll just walk back to my car.
I'd be lost. I need to get back. Like, and then.
Really. Right, like, and if you schedule it, it's great,
It's
but like,
45, and we're adding 5%, so we're adding
Okay, so you think that.
$14. We're not writing $7. And it's, yes. $7 and. I mean, obviously people are already getting sweatshirts and swag, but like you probably might, if you're involved in club events, you probably do.
yeah, you know,
Just that's what we want, right?
Right, and it's like, get moving. Oh, which like got, and they were, and they're probably right. They were like, now, not that.
Senators. Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Is this on? It's not on. What happened? I didn't even touch it. Senators, please find your seats.
let's vote. No, you didn't. That's
Senators, could you please find your seats? I just want people ready.
The eggs? Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm sure. Same thing.
I was just trying to answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is. I didn't expect. Yeah, I was hope that would be like. But that's just not math.
For the department's finance committee, okay, that's really good.
Something else that I'm reading the policy right now. The budget is going to go. I eat, and the budget is going to go to the president. The president is going to say, "I do like this way," and then it will go to. I think it was whatever disagreements there.
Yeah.
And he's fine with it. I thought it's like this. So it's like the board and it's like, oh, ASUO one thing, like on how much funds they're getting. But it also like and he doesn't say anything. And it's not the board with the university president and the ASUO.
Just enough time to do everything you wanted to do. How fantastic. It gets hot. And it gets tough too much. Yeah, I just want to use it.
Senate will be in regular order. Okay. Have it on good authority. PFC is ready. Wonderful. Before we start with voting on budgets, I just want to express my deep appreciation for members of the finance committees, more specifically the three chairs, Tara, Kyle, and Jordan, for the amount of work they've done over the past long months. We've made it, and I've never been more proud to be able to make the historic investments in childcare and student organizations and all the other units we fund, and you should all be proud of yourselves. I'll also remind folks that as we start voting on budgets, I know we have folks that are, student workers that might get funded by departments contracts, or, if you, whatever, just if you have a financial interest, probably abstaining might be best for some of those votes. Other than that, I will turn the floor over to folks who have questions or motions for the chairs, or for the Senate as a whole. Senator Potter and then Senator Moreno.
Does that mean if you're part of like student orgs, we should abstain from voting on the PFC budget?
It's really up to you. If you receive a stipend, maybe, but no, if you're just a part of it, I wouldn't say. Yeah.
I usually tell my people about the student org thing because a lot of us are part of student orgs is if either you receive a stipend or if you feel like you cannot make an unbiased decision, then you should probably abstain.
Senator Moreno.
We get the dollar amount for how much the IFE is going to be raised per year term.
Yes, please stand by. $8.25. Senator Mohammed, then Senator Pinheiro. Do you think you could make an unbiased decision? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Are you sure? Okay.
Senator Pinheiro.
What's the dollar amount for the 5.2 increase? Sorry, Kyle, for making you do bad.
$152.75.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just saying it for the folks.
75 cents.
Okay. Anybody else? Go.
Could PFC verify their dollar amount and percentage if they're not?
My laptop's dead.
Here, I got it. Hold on.
Do you want a charger?
I'm currently charging it. Yes,
Um,
I yield to Richardson.
Yeah, but can you grab the microphone?
Y'all should have given me one of these to start. Okay. The total dollar amount is $2,241,126, an increase of $330,708, 21.75%.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ducharme.
I move to approve the fiscal year 26 budget for the program's finance committee in the amount of $2,241,126, a 21.75% increase.
Motion made by Ducharme, seconded Garrity. Is there any discussion? Then we'll vote. Peters.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
Mohammed. Vo. Potter. Ackman. Pinheiro. Moreno. Fisher. Withers. Ramirez Pineda. Nagarajan. Wu.
Aye.
Esbeck. Bagtalunan. Scrow. Dillon. Ludeman. Bauman. Ducharme.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Jenkins Hiscox. Garrity.
Aye.
And I say as well, the motion's adopted and the vote is approved. We got two more committees, folks. Ducharme.
I move to approve the department's finance committee. I move to adopt the fiscal year 26 budget for the department's finance committee in the amount of $4,705,370, a increase of 11.34%.
Motion made by Ducharme, seconded Pinheiro. Is there any discussion? Ludeman and then Dillon.
I thought it was an 8.03% increase. Is that true?
What's the number you read?
I recall the 8% increase from the presentation. I read off 11.34, which is currently in the IP tracker.
Pinheiro.
I believe the 8% in the presentation was the discrepancy between the budget. Yeah, the differences between the request and then the actual. So I think you're correct. Kyle?
The 11.34 is correct.
Okay.
I yield.
I yield.
Okay. You're good. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll vote. Peters. Lopez. Mohammed. Vo. Potter. Ackman. Pinheiro. Moreno. Fisher. Withers.
Aye.
Ramirez Pineda. Nagarajan.
Oh, sorry. Abstain.
Nagarajan. Wu.
Aye.
Wu.
Aye.
Bless you. Asbeck. Pagtalunan. Scrow.
Aye.
Dillon. Ludeman.
Aye.
Bauman. Ducharme.
Aye.
Cole.
Abstain.
Jenkins Hiscox. Garrity. And I say as well, the motion passes and the budget's adopted.
Yeah, I did just want to call to everyone's attention that discrepancy between the 8 and the 11. It is a minor Excel error. I don't think we have to revote at all, but it's just calculating based on not this year's budget, but last year's. So that's why the percents look higher. I think the DFC is that 8.03. I can calculate the PFC one real quick if you guys want the real one, but I think it's fine. It's all the numbers are correct. It was just the percentages were calculated wrong.
Any questions? And then I'll come to you first, and then. Okay, Potter.
I move to adopt the FY26 budget for the Contracts Finance Committee in the amount of, sorry, one moment, in the amount of $3,191,268, reflecting a 1.4% increase.
Second from Ramirez Pineda.
Motion made by Potter, seconded Scro. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Peters, Lopez, Mohammed, Bo, Potter, Ackman, Pinheiro,
Aye.
Moreno, Fisher, Withers,
Aye.
Ramirez Pineda,
Aye.
Nagarajan. Wu,
Aye.
Asbeck, Tagtulinen, Scro,
Aye.
Dillon, Ludeman, Bauman. Ducharme.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Jenkins Hiscox. Garrity. And I say as well, the motion passes and the budget is adopted. Alrighty. Okay. 1 second. Becky, could you remind me, do we vote at the end on the whole budget, or yeah? On the 10 million number? Okay. Yeah, send it to me. Please. Okay. What's the dollar amount? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I move to adopt the FY26 incidental fee at $153.50, reflecting an 8.25% increase. What?
It's $8.25 increase with a 5.7.
Oh, I'm sorry. Reflecting an $8.25% increase, or yeah, for 5.7%. Seconded Moreno. Motion made by Lopez Dubois, second Moreno. Is there discussion? Peters, Lopez,
Aye.
Mohammed, Bo, Potter,
Aye.
Ackman, Pinheiro,
Aye.
Moreno, Fisher, Withers,
Aye.
Ramirez Pineda,
Aye.
Nagarajan, Wu,
Aye.
Asbeck, Tagtulinen, Scro,
Aye.
Dillon,
Aye.
Ludeman, Bauman, Ducharme,
Aye.
Cole,
Aye.
Jenkins Hiscox, Garrity, and I say aye as well. Motion's adopted. Okay, great. We did it, you guys. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have an update. I have one update, one last update. It's not only is it the first day of February, but it's a special day. It is Senator Muhammad's birthday, and I think. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't sing. So on the count of 3, let's sing. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday to you.
Cha
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday, dear Sama. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. Best birthday party ever.
Okay, that concludes my update. While we're here, do we want to approve the minutes from January 29th, 2025?
I move to approve the minutes from January 29th, 2025.
Second, Woo.
Been made by Fisher, seconded Esbeck. All in favor? Opposed? Other?
Second here.
Motion made by vote. Who was that? Cole?
Cool.
All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Other? Great. The Senate will stand adjourned until Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Hey. 11 p.m. Is there party tonight?
That's just
No, no, no,
I wish you luck. I wish you. I hope you have success.
Last year, so when Natalie, she was CFC chair, you held the party.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other day, I was like, yeah, everyone.
Yeah. Here you go. You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. What did you do with my day? Very early on, we not bed at this time. Saturday when I had breakfast, I called my mom. Thanks for breakfast. I made my breakfast. And I the rest of the day. Want in bed or go shopping? Nice. Oh, what did you go shopping? I want to go get calico critters. Oh, awesome. Mystery. Okay, so last weekend, I went to Benson Street. Yes, I did. They sell the mystery calico critters. Really? Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we are. Yeah. Mine is like perpetually. Might that be the one thing I forgot? I'm gonna crash out. I know. I feel so like this is that the correct term? Dignity? But I don't know if I ever heard that. Oh, never heard it. Oh my god.
I know. I couldn't get in the way. That's how much spirit and and even then, I think there's a good likelihood that the right share goes over that. Like, I think the data we have suggests one thing, like it's average. But I agree, you know, like, the great reason. It is. We are where we are.